Hi there, I'm Tyler Osby, and hopefully by this point we've talked or met. And my reason for creating this video today is I often get the question, what is a buyer advantage pre-approval letter? And over the last, as I record this, 12 years of being in the mortgage industry, I've noticed a few things. And one thing I've noticed is the process of pre-approvals is completely messed up in my mortgage industry. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a pre-approval that works for our client as the home buyer, and not for the seller. Because in my opinion, most pre-approvals are kind of designed to benefit the seller and not the buyer. So first, let's talk about general pre-approvals. Pre-approval, by definition in the mortgage industry, means that someone has looked at all of your documentation, tax returns, pay stubs, bank statements. They've really kind of looked over everything that an underwriter would. And the reason why this is so important is because too often there's small details that come up later on. Maybe it's something that was reported to the tax return that the client may not have thought about. Maybe it's a deduction on their pay stub that they didn't think about. But it's the small things that are really the big things in terms of what creates the, you know, delays in closing and the really negative experiences that you hear about during the home buying process. So if you get a thorough pre-approval, which all of our pre-approvals are extremely thorough, you'll be sure to have all of those boxes checked, so to speak. So anyway, that being said, most pre-approvals in our industry usually name off a top price of home. So for example, I send you a pre-approval letter that says, congratulations, you qualify for $200,000. Well, there's two problems with that in my professional opinion. The first thing is we have to make a lot of assumptions in terms of what taxes might be or what association dues may or may not be to hit that $200,000 mark. So if you push the limit in terms of what you buy as opposed to what you qualify for, specifically, let's say you buy a $200,000 house, but you buy a house that's in Ankeny, for example, and taxes are really expensive, and all of a sudden what was a $200,000 pre-approval should really be like 190 because of the increase of taxes. You can kind of see where I'm going here, where pre-approvals are a little bit too broad, and it doesn't really help the buyer either. But also, going in a completely different direction, now that I've talked about the scary stuff, the other side that hurts buyers in terms of negotiating and getting the best terms on a deal is if you have a house that you're going to buy, and let's say you're pre-approved for that 200,000, but there's no way that you'd spend over 150, and you go in on a house that's 150 and you decide to write an offer for 145 and you give them this pre-approval letter that says, hey, I'm qualified for 200. That seller now knows that you could afford to pay full price for that house. And between me and you, we're just talking, right? It has nothing to do with what the house is worth, what you could afford to pay for it. Can we agree on that? I think it's pretty fair. Sellers still think that it does. And I think that that's crazy, but it's just the reality of what I've found. So that is why a generic pre approval letter, which frankly is what most people issue, doesn't really do you any favors in the negotiation process. So fast forward 5 years into my career, I thought I had gotten really smart and I decided that we were going to do pre approvals for each offer that's written. So you send me an email or call me and say, hey, Tyler, I'm interested in writing an offer on this house. We're going to write an offer for 145. The list price is 150. So I get you a letter that says you qualify for 145. That's what we used to do like 5 years ago. And you use that letter, and naturally the seller doesn't agree to your first offer. They counter, and you end up at 148. Well, the seller's going to want a new pre-approval letter. The trouble with that is one of two things happens, and I saw this firsthand, so this is where this came from. The seller's either going to think, oh my goodness, this person had to go back to the lender to get qualified for more money. They're really stretching it. They can barely afford this house, right? Which is not what you want a seller to think. Not 1 second do you want the seller to think that, because they'll doubt your financing. The second thing that they may think is this person's just jerking us around. They can qualify for a whole lot more money, and what else are they not telling us? This just seems like they're totally trying to manipulate us, which also doesn't do you any favors in a negotiation. I think we can both agree on that. So when I saw this happen in real time personally, I decided I needed to come up with a better way to do this. And that way that I came up with was what we currently utilize in our mortgage practice, which is a buyer advantage pre-approval letter. And what a buyer advantage pre-approval letter is it is a property specific pre-approval letter. The only thing that it says is that you qualify for that specific property. So let's say you're buying 1234 Main Street. Well, the only thing that letter tells us is that you qualify for 1234 Main Street. There's no mention of how much that house is because we've already looked at that, obviously. There's no mention of how much you want to get the house for because that's what a negotiation is for. It only says that you are pre-approved, which means we've actually checked your documents in, and that you qualify for that specific house. So that's super beneficial. Now, to layer in addition to that with our specific pre-approval is we've spent many years really trying to create a reputation for ourselves in the market, specifically here in the metro. That when we give a pre-approval, it's really a demonstration that we've done the research, we've looked into things, and that we're really, confident that we can get you to the closing table based on what we've seen. And we perform on that on a regular basis. If you Google us, you'll find plenty of reviews that point to that. But having a pre-approval letter from a local, reputable lender is worth something in the negotiation, especially if there's multiple offers being looked at and one person's working with a less than reputable lender. And it's tough to say these things without sounding like a complete arrogant jerk, if I'm being honest. So my only recommendation, because I feel awkward even talking about this, is Google us, see what other people have had to say, both realtors and home buyers, and you'll quickly see that there's just kind of a reputation out there for what we're able to do. The whole on time, under budget, no surprises thing is no joke. It really is what we're about delivering. And it all starts with this buyer advantage pre-approval letter. So as you're looking at homes, please do keep us in the loop. All we need you to do if you need a buyer advantage pre-approval is just email my team, because that way it's going to all of us as opposed to just me. That way you get the fastest response. And the team email address is team@tylerosbyteam.com. We just need to know the property address and the current listing price of what it's listed for, because sometimes we can't find that stuff online, and it's just easiest if you give us that and we can get all the other information we need. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. But that is kind of the buyer advantage pre-approval in a nutshell. Bad joke. And I hope that it's helpful for you. So I'll talk with you soon. Thanks again, and looking forward to helping you out.